1, 2, 3. Let's do the snap to begin. All right, so let's do it one more time. All right, you and me. 1, 2, 3. All right. I want to say thank you all for coming out to the Creator's Key with Hannah Webb, aka Hannah Obanoth, aka the Obanoth. Hey, how you living? How you doing?
The Obanoth is maybe the furthest away anyone has ever gotten from my actual name. Yeah, the Obanoth. Yeah, doing good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well, doing pretty classy. I'm glad I managed to grab you for this wonderful episode of Creator's Key. It's a shame that our co-host, inspiring Josh, couldn't be here, but I'm glad that during this month of Women Appreciation Month, or other known as International Women's Month, we have the greatest and my most dearest friend, Hannah, who is a LA artist and who came from Ohio to make her way to the big city to share her art, share her love of education, what she did to make it this way, and just share her story.
Yep.
All right. Tell me, how long you been in LA for?
I have been in LA for about 5 years and change, but I was in Orange County before that. So I left Ohio when I turned 18, almost right when I turned 18, and have been in California ever since.
Oh, wow. Well, when did you adopt the name, the Obanoth?
I've been using the name for a long time. I think before I got serious about trying to be an artist with an internet presence, I was using it even then, mostly just because there are a lot of Hannah Webbs in the world. There's actually a very internet famous Midwestern beauty queen and also a young gymnast also named Hannah Webb. So if you Google my name, you'll never find me. Don't do it.
Or secretly that you're these people, but you just have a different identity for all these different life skills.
Pretty clearly not these people. No, but it just kind of made sense for me to use a different name for my stuff. And also, I don't always want my own name to be front and center for everything. So, I just kind of used it as an alias. And then as following grew or whatever, I just kind of decided to keep it.
Okay. How did you exactly get the name?
Yeah, well, I've told the story before, but it's basically a nonsense word. It is from a CAPTCHA, which is
something to prove you're not a robot?
Something to prove you're not a robot, yep. And I got it, and I actually took a screenshot of it and have it on my computer to this day. But it was a random set of letters, and I thought it sounded cool. So I've used it for, 10 years on the internet.
Wow, you actually took the identity of a robot or a computer device.
I am a robot, so it worked out.
Well, that's the future. Eventually, we're all going to be living in computers. You've seen that episode of Black Mirror?
Oh, yeah.
Where everyone gets transferred to a computer and live their best life, basically heaven.
Honestly, it looks pretty good.
That was pretty awesome. You could live in the 80s or the 70s.
Yeah.
I just saw that movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I have not seen that.
That era, Quentin Tarantino. Don't trust hippies and don't trust Charlie Manson.
Cool. Well, when I'm uploaded into a hard drive somewhere, I'll keep it in mind.
All right. Well, because you have these two different identities, kind of like Bruce Wayne Batman, the Obanoth to the Hannah Webb.
Exactly.
I'm guessing that during the day, who is Hannah Webb?
Yeah. Well, I have a day job, so Hannah Webb works at a school and in administration, and I am Hannah Webb until 6 o'clock, Monday through Friday, and then I am the Obanoth, I guess, every other time. So,
how does the Obanoth save our creative minds? Do you share your art so that we have hope in another tomorrow?
Yeah, no. I'm going to be honest. It's not about that at all. No, I don't know. I mean, I make art that I think is interesting to me. I mean, a lot of these are kind of personal explorations of stuff. So, I mean, if you get something out of it, then that's wonderful. But I am not trying to save the world by painting frogs and birds.
Well, okay, I can see you can't really save every little species, but how close do you have to get to paint a black widow? because that's a big old note.
Yeah, well, somebody has to get close enough at least to take a photo for me to look at, or a scientific illustration or something. Yeah, I do not have these insects, in my house. So, or I hope not.
Oh God, I hope you don't. I've seen those bites. It's just like a small hole.
Yeah, it looks bad.
So bad. But you have one insect that is pretty sure doesn't exist. The eyeball beetle.
Yeah, I mean, so an amount of my work is pretty faithful to the reference or to the species or whatever it is that I'm kind of working from, or whatever the piece is about. But some of my other pieces, usually things that are bigger, I try to do something creative with. So it's based off of a specific thing, but then sort of twisted creatively, or maybe a combination of more than one thing. It kind of depends on size. I mean, a lot of the ones that are just a single thing, like a single bug or a single whatever, are usually smaller paintings, and so there's not usually as much room for me to put a ton of weird stuff on there.
Well, I'm glad you say that, because a lot of artists, they have a bit of identity behind what they do, and we will talk on your style per se, but when we talk about your characters, you can see that they have a twist to, if we were going to use that beetle again, a study. All right, no beetle will have an eyeball on the back of its shell. So you take that study and you do a rendition that you fancy yourself. So looking through some of your work, which is all amazing, and you got a bear with a third eye, which is very, very wise, inspiring. Open that third eye, mind's eye.
There you go.
And then you have a blue lip, bloody. Have you ever bitten your tongue? Because this is actually quite painful.
It is. Yeah. I don't wear it all the time, but I have my tongue pierced. So I have.
Yeah?
Yeah, I cannot do you one.
Yeah, I can't do needles myself.
It
so
doesn't feel good.
You're bold. Too bold. But seeing through all your work, it's just fantastic. And I've been following you for a very long time. And I remember originally you were doing stuff not along these lines. Can you tell us a little bit more about what style you're at now, or what is your style, and how you evolved from previous work?
Yeah, I think that my work now, I think I have stopped caring about making work that I think people want to see from me. Honestly, I've gone through a lot of different phases. I was working with watercolor for a long time. I was doing just digital work, and I feel like a lot of that has been me sort of hunting for an identity, or trying to figure out what it is that people like, or what does well online, or whatever. But it was harder to motivate myself to work like that. And I think that the work that you do, it's pretty obvious how much you care about the thing that you're making, so when I'm trying really hard, I was trying to do caricatures and stuff of characters and different things, and it was fine, but felt a little soulless, felt a little gimmicky to me. I eventually just was like, I don't care about this, and it was hard at that point to pivot away from it, because it felt like so much of my identity. It was like, well, I had decided on this. This is my style now. This is my whole shtick, and I got to only do this forever. And then eventually decided, I don't care. Yeah, I'm over it. Am I allowed to curse?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Just making sure. It's just like, well, fuck it. I mean, I do other work too. I prefer painting, but the reason why I do less of it is because I'm worried that people won't like it as much, or it won't perform on the internet as well, or, what is it that's holding me back? And then just realized I really need to not give a shit about that. And funny enough, when I started focusing more on just making work that I care about personally, and work that allows me to explore the things that I want to explore, that actually was one of the, I think, big drives for why my social media following increased. I think it's pretty clear when people are doing things for the right reasons, and when people are doing things just because they're trying to get traffic, or trying to get money or what, you know, I don't know. Like, I think that it's pretty obvious the difference. So, when I was trying to, you know, muscle my way through making work that I thought people wanted to see, it was really hard to get inspired, and it was frustrating because I always felt like I was chasing something that's abstract, you know?
Yeah, but do people still come to you saying like, "Hey, can you draw me as a caricature?" Not in the current style you have now, but because they know you have the training background to do it.
They occasionally do, and I tell them no.
That's the right answer.
It is. I mean, I don't really care about that anymore. I don't feel like I need it. And, you know, that's one of the most refreshing things that you can do in your life as an artist is say no to projects. It's hard to do it, but when you learn to do it, it's very freeing.
Don't you have like 30 projects due next week or something like
Yeah, I
that?
always have 30 projects due next week, but I still say no to stuff. So they're projects I want to do. My 30 projects due next week are all generally things that I like.
Well, I mean, that's the dream. When you do what you love, you're not really working.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, you're
the
still
proverb.
working.
Yeah.
That's a myth. This notion that, you know, if you love it, that you won't struggle through it, or that it'll just be easy forever. I mean, that is super untrue.
Well, I guess in your case, the myth is you don't really need sleep. Like, sleep is not a thing.
I sleep 8 full hours a night.
No way.
I do.
You manage to do all this work and still sleep 8 hours.
Yes, I have a day job, and I paint a lot, and I get 8 hours of sleep. It is doable.
All right, so we got a witch in the house. I don't know how you do it, but it is amazing. So many artists always say they don't have time to do something or they have other obligations. And, you know, it's true. People's lives are different, and it's intense because for an artist, if you have a day job, coming home to do whatever piece of art you want to do, and no one knows the process that artist goes through to do it, but they could take like a couple days just to finish one piece.
Yeah.
But you crush it out in a single night, day even.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm doing something bigger and more substantial, then it takes me more than a day. But I mean, I can usually convince myself to sit down in my studio space for an hour. You know, I'm a believer that you have an hour somewhere. It's there. You know, you maybe have to pull it out of your TV time, or maybe sometimes you need to, you know, eat dinner faster. Maybe you know, eat your pizza standing in your studio thinking about
Or in the shower.
thing you're maybe sure, I guess. Yeah, I'm not here to judge, but you know, if you can sit down for an hour, then you can work every day, and I believe that you can. Everybody can. You can get up a little earlier if you have to. There is a way, and then you just figure out what you can do in that amount of time, and maybe it takes you 5 days of 1 hour sessions, or maybe not.
That is some actually wonderful school perspective.
Yeah, I know.
I remember having to do like certain figure drawings, like 2 hours for this class and 3 hours the next day because I just couldn't get it done. But it's keeping that same mentality, rigorousness to, you know, persevere and get the job done. That's something that's kind of maybe you can call it laziness a bit, or maybe just other obligations where you just don't focus like that.
It's easy to do when you love it, and if the work that you're doing is not work that you love, then that would be a grind and a huge pain in the ass, right? Like if you had to do an hour of something that you hate all the time, or you know, like back when I was making work I didn't really care about. I mean, that trying to commit myself to, you know, get home from work, sit down in a chair and stay there for an hour and work on something. I mean, that was a lot harder when I wasn't interested in what I was doing. But now that I am, you know, and also working with acrylic, which is relatively cheap and I can put out this much at a time, you know, I don't feel like it's wasteful. I don't feel like every time I have to set up my studio, it's not worth it unless I can be there for 3 hours. You know, I mean, you have to like ditch all of that and be truly okay with, okay, I'm going to sit down here and maybe I will only do this for 40 minutes today.
Yeah. But enough where you can see a little bit of progress.
Yeah, or just enough that it keeps your momentum, you know?
How would you describe this like solidified pixel art?
Yeah, I don't know. No, I mean, so I'm technique centric. Yeah, you know, I mean, everything that I do is The effect in the end is like kind of the squares, pixelated, blocky, shapy look. And it's more obvious in pieces that I spent less time on with fewer layers. So, you can see in certain ones, you can really see every mark, and in some of them, they get a little buried when it gets, high detail and stuff. But I don't know that it has a name, and I haven't named it. What I'm doing is I'm painting with acrylic, and I'm painting alla prima, which means I'm doing it in one sitting, just front to back with no sketches, no color studies. I'm not breaking down the shapes before I start the painting either. So I don't have a plan for where every mark is going to go, and I don't have a plan for what every little bit of color is going to look like, because things kind of shift. And then sometimes if I start with yellow, those yellows will go a little green, and sometimes those yellows will go a little
Color
orange.
theory.
Yeah. But I don't have all of that 100% planned out in the beginning.
Then for something like the bear, right? Did you have a study to go on? Or did you just subconsciously know that this is the anatomy of a bear, and if you have a problem with it, well, screw you?
I like that, but no. No, so I don't do studies, but I do use reference. And I am a big, huge, mega supporter of using reference. For this one, I used a reference photo of a taxidermy bear. And I can tell you that my painting looks almost nothing like the reference, because that's not what reference is for.
So now that you brought that up, I just want to hear from another fellow artist. What is your difference between referencing and copying?
Yeah, totally. Big difference. I think that there's implications with both. Like, for example, with copying, I think tracing. So, if what you're doing is, and I see a lot of artists do this and I don't like it, but if you are going to take a photo that someone else took, even, like, it's one thing if you're just straight up one-to-one copying another person's artwork. That's pretty obviously copying and crappy, like, that's just not, I don't know. Unless you're not going to ever show it to anyone and this is a study and you're, doing this and then moving away from it. But that is rarely the case when people one-to-one copy other people's art. But yeah, so, tracing things I think is a problem. So like, let's say there is a photo of Johnny Depp. You know that was taken by a professional photographer. All of the lighting, all of the values, everything about that photo is an artistic decision that was not made by the person that copies that photo. So if you do a charcoal drawing of a famous photo of Bill Murray, you really don't get creative, creative props for reproducing the work that somebody else did. So direct one-to-one, especially when you are doing it because you can't draw, like you trace out the plot points and then you just shade it in, that I generally don't think is very good practice, just in terms of becoming better at your craft. I think that's kind of a party trick. But using reference, I think, is important. And the big difference there is knowing what your reference is for and knowing how to use it without overly relying on it. One example of that, so like, we use bird face here for an example.
Yep.
There are things about, especially if you're doing something organic, so you're doing an animal, there's things that you think that you know about what something looks like, and you are wrong. You're just wrong. Like, you can picture in your head an elephant. You are wrong about what it looks like. You just are. Like, you don't know. Even if you know absolutely, I myself have painted hawks and falcons. I've probably painted hundreds of them by now. I still use reference every time because my brain is lying to me. My brain is wrong. And that's just the way that this goes. So the difference that the angle of the pitch of the forehead, the way that feathers curl around the outside of the, where the eyes start to meet the side of the head, all of these things are the difference between a successful piece and an unsuccessful piece. You can tell when those things are in the right place, and you can tell when they're not. So what reference is for is giving you the bone structure, or at least reminding your brain of the information that you think that you already know. So I look at a photo of a bear, not because I can't picture a bear, but because I know that I probably would get wrong the way that in a 3/4 angle, the way the bridge of the nose cuts across the eye. I'm like, okay, I know that it actually cuts across about 20% of the bottom half of the eye. I'm going to use that knowledge to paint. Not, I am going to look exactly at where every mark is and one-to-one copy it and transfer the photo and exactly put it. But having something to look at to understand your subject matter without even constantly one-to-one looking at it is weirdly critical and counterintuitive. So like if you're going to draw a person or a pose or anything, even if you know the things that you gather from having reference in your vicinity, and reminding your subconscious, kind of updating the information in your head as you go, is really beneficial just across the board for people that are doing anything based in reality. I mean, if you're doing something totally funky and
Goofy.
Totally off the wall, sometimes it doesn't matter. But even if you're going to make a little Sasquatch monster, why not look at a photo of
The gorilla
Sure.
thing.
Yeah, and what you see is like, oh, well, that's interesting, the way that the shoulder connects, to the shoulder blade across this side. Oh, that's interesting. So it kind of falls this way. You're not one-to-one copying the photo, but you're learning from the photo as you make a creative piece.
This is the most educated and profound way to describe the two differences. I mean, this is like...
Is that the answer you wanted? I
No,
don't know.
this is the greatest answer. It's not what I wanted. It's what we all deserved.
Wow.
I love there was one picture that you posted on your Instagram story. It was like a little comic. And it was like this person who gives this other guy like, hey, I drew this. It was like the person looks at it, ... And then he says, I drew this. It's like,
Oh my God. Yeah, well,
it was so funny.
enough people, like I see a lot of people repaint my painting, like straight up copy and repaint my paintings, which by the way would be a
slap to your face.
Well, just an incredible pain in the ass. I mean, if you're going to have to trace and then paint in every individual rectangle, like it's one thing if you're building the painting up because, I only mix every color one time. But if you have to like trace every outline of every one of my tiny little squares and rectangles
Madness.
and paint individually, like paint them in like a paint by number, that first of all, that's just crazy. And I don't know why anyone would do that.
Has
But-
someone done that?
Yes, and I see it fairly often.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, people just rip off work online. But whenever I see those with someone else's signature on it is when it's like, so that's not
Lawyer.
reference. No, but that's not using reference.
I've had a conversation with a buddy of mine, actually like a couple days ago, where there's two types of artists essentially. There's the creative, and then there's the technique, where there's the artist who creates a new kind of character and using whatever learning methods they've gathered along the way to make this happen. And then there's also the artist who's a genius when using artist techniques and could recreate anything. But that goes into like maybe art restoration or art forgery, who is the real master, the artist or the forger. And, it's that one person that 1% combining the two, where he has both the technique but also the originality to make something new. That is what I think that every artist wants to strive for, but they just can't really achieve. So they find, let's say someone's copying you, then you're that person's idol. Imitation is flattery. It's a kind of a soft way of putting it, but that person has to have a high level of respect for you as an artist if they feel like they want to direct their particular craft towards you, but it's kind of fucked up if they're gonna try and copy it. That's a nice way
to look at it.
Oh, it's a nice way to pat them on the back.
The other way that this happens is that people copy paintings and then sell them because
that's
the
not
original.
That's not good.
Well, yeah, but like my original painting is gone, and then I see someone else copied it and is selling it. I'm like, well,
Dude, I feel like I've heard that from a gallery point where they like took someone's gallery piece and they bought it, but then afterwards they started making prints of that
nice.
and started selling it around. Like, damn, that's savage.
That is a move.
That's a wrong kind of flex.
Oh, that to the artist is super fucked up.
Yeah, oh man. If you find that person who's imitating your work, call the boys.
Oh my
we
God.
got you.
No, I mean, I see copies and studies and things, and it's almost always flattering and benign and not a thing and whatever. And like, that's okay. But I do see things that cross the line sometimes, and it's
Right.
It's kind of a bummer, I mean, because you spend so much time and so much energy, like honing your craft and practicing and trying and exploring. And, I mean, I spend a crazy number of hours trying to get to the point where I have a finished piece to post and, where my body of work is where I want it to be. And then people that skip my years and, hours and hours over years and years of doing that and just go, oh, cool, it's done. Nice. Mine.
And that is why you charge the way you charge.
Like,
well, I guess last point when it comes to your artwork, or at least current artwork, is like, what are the themes that you seem to be going through between animals, and then you have another section that just focus on like teeth or eyeballs, and then you put these all on time lapses. Can you tell me like what is the meaning behind the series and the process of showing the video purpose?
Yeah, I mean, so this is going to be a nerdy answer. So my work is generally inspired by color, shape, and texture, and I try to imply those things using like squares, right? Like in simplified shapes. So, things like teeth and eyes specifically are appealing to me because it is a collision of like wet and dry in an interesting way. So like tooth against gum, is kind of a shiny, wet, shiny, dry, soft, and sharp, So it's sort of you kind of get both of those things together, and it's kind of interesting to play with them in making them stand out from each other, but also kind of making sure that they feel cohesive, and and that the fact that those things that share so many opposite qualities are next to each other and ultimately part of the same thing. Like how do you present those together? And like those are the challenges that I think are interesting and the things that I really like making with work. Eyes are the same way, kind of the soft and wet and light and dark and, and then all the eye stuff. I mean, there's a lot of extras that you get to put in there, I mean, I'm not a big like makeup person necessarily, but there is a lot of artistry and stuff that you can do with that, and a lot of things that are unexpected and color driven and shape centric, and there's a lot of cool stuff online that people do. And, so yeah, I mean, I kind of like also doing that just because I'm interested in it. Mm-hmm. Similarly, I paint occasionally like fruit and vegetables and stuff, and that's usually for the same reason. Like I painted an avocado because it has, a half of an avocado has a dark but shiny pit and a matte kind of flat greenish sort of gradient middle. It's kind of yellowish green to kind of greenish green, and not shiny, but also not. It's soft, but it's, so like how do you imply all of those things together? How do you put all of that into one image, and how do you do it with the tools that you have? So how do you do that with a flat brush?
I bet you stare at the avocado for like 3 days straight.
Yeah, this is what I nerd out on, and it's like not it's not always the most exciting thing to other people. But yeah, I mean that really is like what kind of is interesting to me, and why I make the art that I make is just because I like digging into those things. I like literally studying them and figuring them out and trying to be creative with my representation of them.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, looking at your work here through your Illuminati series, it's like, well, gee whiz, just the mind's eye. You ever thought about putting this on a dollar bill?
Actually, I have, yeah, but I don't know how I don't know. I made a lot of these. Should I keep making these? I don't know.
I mean, I've seen you sell them at conventions, so people like it.
I know people like it, but maybe that's why they shouldn't have
Illuminati. Well, as a bit of guidance, if you mind sharing, let's say there's artists out there who want to move from their small town to the big old Los Angeles. What kind of struggles did you have to go through for you to finally make a presence in the art scene so that these guys will learn from your lessons?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just like trying to figure out where to start. If you're able to move somewhere and you know someone in that city, I mean, that makes it easier. When I first moved to LA, I didn't really feel like I knew people here at all. So for me, it was like, just making friends as an adult. It was just like kind of hard to do.
Like, hi, I'm Hannah.
I know, it's like first day of school, but like I don't have a school, so I don't know where to go. So
Actually, I think you do have a school.
Well, I do, yeah, but I don't go there. So I think it's hard to find your tribe at first, but and I think that's probably true anywhere too. But it just takes time, and this whole concept of networking, like you just have to go to stuff and talk to people, feels uncomfortable and awkward and sort of like an antiquated way to like get yourself places in a technology world. But it is absolutely the way. I mean, that's how I met you, right? I mean, just being places.
Well, I was the goofy goober that happened to know a friend of a friend who invited you out, and then I was at the bar, and one thing happened to another, and I served you a drink. It was like, hey, here's a White Claw, or other brand alcohol beverage that we casually sipped and said hello.
Okay, when we met, I don't think that there was White Claw yet.
Okay, it was a different drink, but we're not sponsored by White Claw yet.
Okay. Yeah, well, no, but I mean, like, so that year, when I met our mutual friend, I was doing a convention show for the first time without knowing almost anything about it or how to do it. I just kind of decided to wing it and went. I had a friend with me helping out at my booth, which was awesome. My friend Lizzie, and she was totally down to just try to go to some stuff. I mean, there was an after party there, and I'm like, I'm already exhausted, but let's. I don't know, let's go. Like, I feel like I should be there, and who cares? I'll be tired tomorrow. I'm tired now. This has been a whirlwind, but let's just go. And and then you do, and then you meet people, and you're around people, and then you become familiar, and they become familiar, and then you meet people, and then they introduce you to people, and it just kind of grows from there. But I mean, you have to be somewhere. You have to leave your house. You have to go meet people.
Unfortunately, people, you got to leave the house.
It sucks, but you can do it.
So what then for those people that leave the house but just don't know what to say? Mm-hmm. What is your preferred icebreaker?
I mean, I don't know. If you go to an art show, you probably have selected that art show because you are aware of either the artist or the gallery, right? Mm-hmm. And either people running the gallery or probably the artist are going to be there. So if you go to somebody's show, you should say hello, wow, I like your work, cool to see it in person, whatever, and you might be surprised at how willing people are to talk to you, I mean, I don't know, it's weird. Level 1 is hard. Level 2 is a little easier. Level 3 is a little easier. Yes, the first, how do you walk into a room when you're alone and say something to someone is mm-hmm. is maybe weird. So bring a friend, just get a drink. All these galleries all have wine, so get some, stand around, look at the work, try to get a feel for what's going on, talk to the gallery people, maybe talk to the artist, just be there, be present, engage with people as much as you can. Other people in the room, honestly, are probably also trying to do the same thing. So it may not be quite as weird. You're not going to be the only person there that doesn't know anybody, and it just, I don't know, be awkward for a little while. You're only awkward for a while, then it gets easier.
I mean, we're all awkward. It's just a matter of our awkwardness blending in the right spots.
Yeah, so just, be awkward, but be awkward publicly and let it blend.
You told us about your breakdown, your creation process, but how long does it usually take?
To make a piece?
Make a piece of painting.
Yeah.
A piece of painting.
Make a piece of painting. It depends. So my fastest paintings are like 5 by 5 inch pieces, and I can do those in an hour-ish, sometimes less, sometimes a little more. It just kind of depends on how like kind of lost I get in it, and that's pretty common. So this whole like sit down for an hour thing, I bet if you sit down for an hour, you will find yourself there more than an hour, by the way, which is the trick that I'm trying to trick you into.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. Yeah, but even if you're not, it's okay. But no, like, so I would say I try to do things in an hour. I think it's a good exercise to give yourself a hard stop and just see how far you get, knowing that whatever you make, even in that amount of time, is something that you are either going to love or more likely you are going to paint over or throw in the trash can. I think that that's fine. So, like, okay, well, what can I do in 45 minutes? Well, I don't know, let's find out. So, okay, I'm going to give myself this much paint. I got to work pretty fast in order to do it. Probably can't go super high detail, right? So, all right, let's just start. Let's block things out. See how far we get. So, trying to work that way, I think taught me to work faster. So
this is literal the school like lessons. They teach you this in art school.
Oh my God, I know. I'm sorry.
It's a foundation.
I'm into the education thing, so it's not surprising that I sound like I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so I would say smaller pieces I can generally bust out in like an hour. If I'm doing a commission piece or, painting somebody's specific, lovely, beloved dog or something, then there's a greater need for accuracy and likeness. So that takes a little bit longer because, again, as somebody that refuses to trace anything, I have to draw it and have to get it right. So there's a little bit more time on the front end, making sure that it's plotted out properly, that it's composed well, and that the piece is going to go the direction I want it to go. So, those pieces take a little bit longer. And then things that are big or just super complex can take me, 3 to 4 hours or so over a couple days sometimes, which is fine. I find myself doing like the second half of a painting and the beginning half of another painting in a sitting a lot. So like right now, if I went home right now, I have a half finished painting on my desk. I would sit down and finish it, start another one, and then leave. So I'm like straddling between painting. Instead of just doing one in a sitting, sometimes it gets broken up.
So this is a little technique that I do when I acrylic paint. I put a lot of my acrylics on a wet piece of paper towel so that, come back the next day, I still have my paint. I could just continue where I left off. For anyone who wants to start and then go back to their artwork, do you have any tips for a method such as that? Or do you want to keep your secrets to yourself?
No, it's not I will tell all my secrets, but you're not going to like it. You have to mix it again. That's the lesson.
That is the lesson.
That's the lesson. Seriously. That's why I changed to acrylic in the first place, by the way, is that I realized I was faking it, knowing about color, and all of my paintings used to be really gray and grody. So, the point, I mix so little paint for every color that I mix that I have about 20 seconds to use it before it is either dry or gone and I have to mix it again. So there is no saving for me. And also, honestly, that cuts down on my painting time, my cleanup time. When I'm done painting, here's how much I clean up. I stand up and I leave.
Oh, that's the dream.
Yeah, but my palette is wax paper and I don't throw it away after I paint. I clean it up and replace it before I paint next time. Doesn't matter. I keep brushes sitting in water, which on one, people will tell you is a terrible thing to do.
Bent brush.
Yeah, but I do it and my brushes seem to hold their shape relatively well, or else you'd be able to see all my paintings looking.
Oh, you got them nice brushes.
I don't. That's actually the other part of it, is that I kind of beat the crap out of brushes and I buy cheap ones. But I just leave them sitting in water all the time.
Well,
all day, all
the
night.
tools don't make the artist. Artist makes the tools, or uses the tools. Duh.
Definitely uses them.
Well, because you make all these wonderful pieces, I'm sure you sell all these online. How do you scan your paintings to the computer but keeps its crispness?
Yeah, well, right. So that right there. So I don't generally photograph my work. I scan it. That works because I'm painting with acrylic and because my style is to paint super thin and super flat. So like if you were holding one of my paintings and you turned it on its side and looked at it like from an angle, it would have almost no texture and depth. So just naturally the way I paint is just flat, which means that I can put things on a flatbed scanner to capture them and archive them, which to me is super important because I have basically a log of every painting I have painted in the past 5 years or so, which is a shit ton. It's a lot of paintings.
Oh yeah.
And all of them I have two versions of every image. I have a high res version from the scanner that I color correct. Scanning gets you pretty close, but can kind of neutralize your darks and stuff, just by the nature of the way scanners are, even a good one, and I have a pretty nice one. So I scan my work, in Photoshop color correct it to match the original, which is pretty fast process, and then I save that out, and then I save one more that I use to post on social media. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but it's a whole thing keeping an archive. I separate all of my my work into years. So every year I just have a new folder on my computer, and I name all of my pieces just by the date.
Does that also include your time-lapse videos too?
Time-lapse videos I just keep on my phone. I record them with my phone, so they just
with your face just like.
Yeah. So in order to get a time-lapse where it looks like just the painting alone with my hands coming in to paint on it occasionally, the way that works is that I have a little phone grip holder that clamps to the edge of my desk and sits right in front of my face. So while I am painting, it's hard with the time lapse because I try not to turn the panel around. In time lapse, if you rotate your piece while you paint it, it makes the time lapse just look like a total spinning mess. Mm-hmm. So you have to hold the painting still and paint with a phone, in my case, directly under your face. So it's really tricky.
So you don't have one of those little tripods to hold a phone?
No, it clamps. So it's like clamped to my desk and then holds my phone over me. But in order to get it square in the frame and flat on instead of at some angle where you wouldn't be able to see it, I have it angled like right here next to my eyes. No personal space. No, but it works.
Hey, some people, it works for them. Other people, they just need like a whole large room to just get a little smiley face done.
Yeah, I have a small studio space. Everything I do is on my desk, so yeah. But the archiving and the capturing is something that, if any artists that don't do this are listening, you absolutely need to start doing. The longer you own your art, the worse shape it is in. Just naturally, it collects dust and filth and it gets scratched and whatever. And also probably the quantity builds and it turns into a mountain, and then you have no record of your work. So get in the habit. If you don't do it every time you finish something like I do, I usually do it the next morning so it dries enough that it doesn't get paint on my scanner. But if you don't do it every day or every couple days, plan to do your housekeeping every week. Do it on Sundays. Scan all of the art that you made. Put it in a folder somewhere. You will be glad that you did.
I just finished clearing up all my Procreate drawings and putting it onto Dropbox. Geez, that took literally all day, like over 15 hours to go through it. And I'm including the sketches, the ideas, and the finished products. And then you categorize it to my mindset. It's like, geez. And you actually having tangible work, that's...
Yeah, I mean, when I paint the little paintings, I list them in my store and try to just get rid of them right away. So I don't have a ton of my own work at home. So fortunately, like the literal mountain is small, but the files archive is monster. So I just have everything labeled, and
backed up, of course.
And backed up, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my God, it's my whole life. If I did a painting today, it would be today's date. So this is not the day, but it would be like 03_05_ for me is like, okay, this was March 5th. It's in the 2020 folder, so I know what year, full size version. And then the other one would be 03 underscore 05 underscore whatever.
Can't get over how administrative this is.
I know, it's gnarly. But honestly, like if I labeled all of my work by what it is, like mouth or duck or whatever, I mean, seriously, like
Fair enough.
I would never find anything I'm looking for. I can usually track it by when I made it. That kind of is memorable to me. Like generally when I made something I can come back to. But what I named something, oh my God, I don't know.
That's your organized chaos. I get it.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own.
Like keyboard smash letters or something, like
Yep.
whatever. I can't think of a name. You know, like leave this on the desktop.
You have an assistant try to find something, like, you'll never find it. Just
No.
let me do it.
Yeah, this is the only way that I can keep myself like generally sane with volume is to, you know, be weird about how I document it.
Well, for any artist that actually has a large body of work and is trying to, you know, push that on some needing customers of visual expertise, what are some ways to sell an item as well as avoid scams?
Yeah, so I've made a lot of mistakes over the years of just like learning how to talk to clients, learning how to set boundaries, you know, learning kind of how to say no, but also learning what platforms work for you. For me, some of the scams and some of the areas I've gotten burned were like selling usage of designs. So like someone will ask you to draw something, and then all of a sudden you feel weird about it. It's like one small drawing, you know, it's no big deal. You charge them too little. You charge them $50, whatever. It'll take me 20 minutes. And then you see that they're using it on every corner of their website. It's printed on T-shirts. It's huge, and then the company grows, and you're like, well, what the hell, you know? Like, wow, I really screwed myself on that one. But, you know, there's that, obviously. The other big part of it is not getting paid for the commission work that you do. Like, you hear a lot of artists that say, you know, you should always ask for half up front, right? Ask for half of the money up front, and so that they don't disappear on you. That is very good advice. I personally ask for full payment up front, so I don't have to chase people down for the remaining payment for art that I make. I don't have time for it. I don't do it. So if people are unwilling to put down the full price of the art before I make it, then I just won't take the project.
Simple as that.
Yeah. All of my sales of stuff go through my online store, and there's no, you know, I don't accept checks or anything that gets weird, you know. I mean, there's a lot of email scams and stuff like, we'll mail you a check if you whatever,
Nope.
which I just don't do. You know, so everything that goes through my store, it's like payments are processed through a credit card reader or through PayPal, and it's harder to scam through an online store on those things.
Funny you say that. I've been having so many people try to buy my products through PayPal, but then they send this message saying like, hey, so we sent you a payment. Please check your inbox and or spam folder for payment. It's like, well, I get notifications every time any form of income comes in my phone. Mm-hmm. What are you talking about? And then they keep saying the same thing. The grammar is terrible. It's like, sus.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I mean, honestly, if people are paying you direct, Venmo is actually pretty good because you can't reverse payments. Mm-hmm. So if somebody, like if I sent you $20 on Venmo, there is no option for me to cancel it. You can't contact Venmo. They won't reverse a charge. So that's like what you get. That's in the fine print on that app. But it's nice because if somebody pays you, then you know that's the end of the transaction.
Yes.
You know, you have it. That's it. All good. The end. So yeah. And then there's like things that are not scammy, but probably good practice. Like I choose to run my own online store through Big Cartel, which I love, instead of hosting on like Etsy or things that take a cut of your profit and stuff. I don't know. I've organized things where I just try to reduce the amount of noise and paying extra for stuff and, you know, those types of things. So I try to go lean.
Yeah, keep those overhead costs low. Mm-hmm. All right, so Hannah, let's talk a little about the involvement you've had in the art community. You had your own art show, you've done conventions, you've done like partnerships, group shows. Mm-hmm. Tell me, what is it like to be an artist at a convention? What kind of feedback can you share for any artist who's trying to get into that scene? And also, how many have you done?
Well, so getting into the scene is basically just signing up. You will never feel ready, so you should just sign up. And then as the deadline approaches, you will force yourself to get ready. Because the first time I ever did any convention, it was DesignerCon, which I personally think is the best one of all of them. But so anyway, the first year that I did it, I signed up like early in the year. And then as we got closer and closer to the show in November, I was like, oh shit, I need to like, what am I supposed to do here? Like, do I make a print or something? Like, okay, how do I do that? So, in general, conventions and things are open participation. I mean, you just have to like commit to doing it. And sometimes you have to commit before you are ready, like have a couple glasses of wine and then be like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and commit. And then you will deal with that decision as you get closer to the event, and you'll be glad that you did in the end. But yeah, you just kind of have to like go and do it.
Well, after your first time doing it, I know you started doing work that you want to do, just you, but because you got your feet wet and now you know what the convention scene is like, did you start remodeling some of your designs to fit the demographic that would come to these type of conventions? And
sorta.
And let's focus on DesignerCon, and then let's talk about the other conventions you're part of, because I understand that, or for anyone that doesn't know, DesignerCon is a toy expo for toy makers and independent artists. So they get all the love in comparison to like Comic-Con or EmeraldCon, where it's a little bit more kind of like you get a artist alley per se.
Yeah, a lot of those events, the Comic-Cons and the whatever, I mean, those are a little bit more fan art oriented and usually a little bit more media oriented. So television, movie, whatever. The DesignerCon, for example, and there's others that are like this, but it is a little bit more independent artist centric. So, painters, sculptors, toy makers, independent people that do apparel and things, it's sort of a location for all of them, which is why I like that show the best, is because I think it's the most diverse. I think most of the work that you see is totally unique, and I think I've discovered, most of my favorite artists that I've discovered in the past some odd years have been people that I've either met there or just seen their work there. But that show maybe I like the most just because it is most relevant to the work that I produce. So, when I first started doing DesignerCon, I was still doing more fan art centric stuff. Like I was doing, caricatures of like cartoon characters and stuff, whatever, that I thought maybe was cool and then decided it wasn't. But I've done DesignerCon for 5 or so years now in a row, and the work that I bring now is completely different. You don't see anything like that from me anymore. So, I think you just try it out. I mean, I tried it with totally different work and liked it. As my work evolved and I stopped doing work like that and started just painting, the year that I really fully made that transition, DesignerCon was coming up, and I was like, oh crap, like I really don't know what to bring now. Like now I'm basically like a fine artist. I mean, what the hell? What am I supposed to, like, do people want prints of this? Because I don't know what else to bring. And had to get creative, and it still was valuable. Honestly, even if you are not going specifically to sell stuff, these are really awesome networking events. Talking about how do you meet people in the art community, right? I mean, talking to people at these conventions, like here they are, and people are very happy to give you a business card, follow each other on social media or see each other at the after party or
where the magic happens. Oop, my claw.
Yep, there you go. Yep. Shameless plug. So I think it's good. I mean, DesignerCon at this point is huge. It moved to Anaheim in the convention center. It's this huge monster event, and it is still generally lucrative for the artists, I think. My own experience in talking to other people, but it is expensive. I mean, right, you have to like buy the booth space, you have to prepare a lot of materials potentially to sell there. Now that it's not in a place where I immediately live, now it's like, okay, well then I have to get a hotel room or whatever you do, or drive up and down or wherever you are a lot. But what you get out of it in terms of the networking, the hanging out with other artists, the being in the scene, and all of that stuff. I mean, that stuff is pretty invaluable. So I think that's an easy way to like force yourself into the community, and it's worth it.
It's kind of, how you have to pay money to go into a club sometimes? Like you're paying a crap ton of money to be in the same room as all the cool artists.
Yeah, totally. But it's worth it, I think.
Oh, I've met so many cool artists that are like so playful, get the same vibe as me, laugh at my jokes. And some of these people are also there for business and they want to have a professional network. So it's a good place to learn what is it like to be a professional in the industry and those who are like in the community for the love of it. And the spectrum is so vast. Now that you've been part of the con scene for quite a while now, what kind of what's the community like? What is a person to expect? Definitely if they get a booth, like will they become close friends with the neighbor they have at the booth?
Maybe. I mean, if you're not like a jerk to them, it's pretty generally people go knowing that you're going to interact with people, right? Like you're going to have conversations with the people that walk up to your booth and say, oh, wow, what is this? Or, how'd you make this? Or, so people are pretty prepared to enter into conversations and be approached by strangers. So like if you saw me at Starbucks and you were like, oh, hey, Hannah, I have 10 questions about your paintings, it'd be like, wow, that is kind of odd. I don't know you. But at a convention, people come up and want to hang out and just watch and talk. And I'll do some painting demos and stuff, and they'll hang out for hours and ask anything and whatever. And that is totally cool, fully expected. That's what everyone is there for. So even if you don't participate, it's worth going to these things. Tickets are usually pretty cheap. Honestly, you can go for a day and meet people, but everybody is like totally at the ready, like to talk and meet and go through stuff and exchange info and whatever. Like I was saying, it's like, it is an absolute melting pot of all of these artists together with one purpose, which is that, which is to like share information and nerd out about your craft.
Well said. What other conventions have you been part of?
I did Long Beach Comic-Con because it was close. I kind of stepped back just because that one is incredibly comic centric and really has less of a place, or I felt like it had less of a place for painters anyway. So that one I just kind of felt like I shifted away from that demographic too far. For my day job, I attend other ones, not representing myself or my own art, but other stuff like Lightbox Expo is new and in Pasadena and is awesome. It is the coolest show.
I see a lot of people actually post that on Instagram. Yeah. I was considering going at one point. They just
released the dates. Last year was the first year that they did it.
Are you going this year? Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably go with my day job, but even if I don't, I'll make a point to go. It's really, really cool. A lot of really cool artists there. So that one's cool.
What's the focus for Lightbox?
Concept artists, sort of, illustrators, and yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, I don't know, kind of, yeah, game concept centric kind of. There's a lot of people that do books and stuff. It's competing or was sort of birthed out of a need to change CTN, which is the Animation Expo in Burbank. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of those artists. So, a lot of people concept for animation, kind of media, storytelling, narrative stuff. It's a fair amount of that.
So if that's the case, people go to Designer Con because the customers are going to walk away with a piece of amazing art. Mm-hmm. But when they go to Lightbox, will they be going there to network for progressive business, or will they go there for like an item or a trinket?
Kind of both. I mean, again, last year was the first year. So I'm sure that it will, develop more of an identity as time goes on. And, and I wasn't there for everything, I don't work there. So as far as I can tell, it seems industry specific, whereas DesignerCon felt more independent than that, more kind of freelancey artists doing their own thing centric. But yeah, so that one's super cool. Another one of my personal favorite shows that I don't participate in but like going to is Monsterpalooza, which is I think it's in Pasadena also. It's in the spring and it rules. It's like all kind of horror and like a movie prosthetic makeup and stuff. Cool. It rules. Yeah, it's super fun.
Is the guy from Hellraiser there?
If he is anywhere, he's there.
I gotta go.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, that one is really bizarre and super fun. It's like old school horror, a bunch of artists, a lot of like funky latex makeup stuff, and a lot of like practical effects, like props and stuff that people make for movies, and just weird crap. It's totally weird and super fun.
Did you ever see that movie Last Cabin in the Woods?
Yes.
The one with the Thor. Thor was in it.
No, wait, yeah.
Yeah, Cabin in the Woods.
That came out a while ago, right?
Yeah, it was like mid 2000s.
Okay.
And like there was like, it started off with these 4, archetypes: the jock, the nerd, the virgin, the stoner, and the last
hot
one,
girl.
the hot girl.
Yeah.
And they're all inside a house, and they all start to die one by one. But then there's like a company that controls all the monsters, and then they start like playing bets on which monster you're gonna kill, and based off the storyline they choose.
Oh no, I don't. Okay, maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
This is getting less familiar.
I just picture that Monsterpalooza. That would, if you're gonna find any plethora of monster creating ideas, you go to that.
Yeah,
you see how it gets made. Oh yeah, well, that's pretty cool about the conventions. Can you tell me a bit about like you as an artist in the realm of galleries? You participated in group shows, but you also had your own solo show.
Yeah.
What is it like to be part of a group show? And then tell us a little bit more about what you had to go through for your solo.
So group show stuff is often invitational. So, I think as you network and people start to know your work and you, more or less, friends put shows together. Some of it is like pretty lowbrow, kind of off the cuff stuff in weird locations for one night only, and then some of it is a little bit more established, more substantial. You get invited by a gallery, and you get to do stuff like that and participate with, maybe a different type of artist. So, group shows are fun just because it's a really good way to like network and meet other artists. Like, oh, hey, this is your piece, right? Mine's over there. Really cool, blah, blah, blah. How do you know so-and-so? Oh, wow. Do you live around here? How long have you been working like this? So it's a very
Take notes,
easy,
people.
Yeah, this is a very easy segue like into meeting other artists, is doing group shows.
Because there's also themes behind group shows. So it can help your creative direction.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Earlier on in my career, I was reaching out to galleries more myself. So I was sending emails like, to the either following submission guidelines if I could find them, or just reaching out to, to main email addresses or whatever of some spaces and saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, this is my work over here. I know that you get a lot of people contacting you, but I just wanted to introduce myself and, and see if you have any opportunities for participation in group shows or anything moving forward. Please keep my information on hand, whatever. Glad to meet you. I go to your openings. I'll try to introduce myself when I'm there at your show on Saturday.
For all you listeners, artists, use that. That's the administrative hello.
To me, it is, I can still consider myself to be a professional artist and even a full-time artist, despite the fact that I still work. I think that it is possible to do both. So first of all, the whole notion that you are not really an artist until it's all that you do, I absolutely disagree with that. So off the bat, there's that. You can do it now, regardless of the other things that you are doing. My advice for everybody is just to remember why you do this. It's hard with social media. It's hard when you feel like you're not getting the likes, or you're not feeling like you're getting movement. All of that needs to fuck off. Honestly, truly, if you're making stuff because you think it's what people want, you're trying to solve a problem, you're trying to make traction on the internet. Honestly, the harder you try to do that, the less it is likely to happen for you. I tried to do that for years and was annoyed because nobody was following me. But fortunately, I didn't let that prevent me from continuing making stuff. And then eventually, by the time I pivoted and returned to my actual love, returned to the painting and the stuff that I actually care about, people naturally will care when it's clear that you care. You just, you just have to turn all of that off. So my big advice is fuck the rest, like do the thing that you do. Show it to people if you can, if you have thick enough skin to deal with the rejection, or don't show it to anyone if you want to eliminate that from your mental equation. Maybe that's better, honestly, for people. But like if you care about it, you'll do it. And if you are finding yourself forcing yourself to care about it, then pivot, try something else, like just because you have been doing something one way or working in some style that, I can't change it now. I've been doing this for 6 months, or I can't.
You're never too committed.
I can't explore a new painting style or a new medium because, man, it would be weird. Like my entire social media is only this one thing. So, my followers expect that this is what I do, and like all of those things are what keeps you in this little box, and you don't grow when you're stuck in the box. So, you just need to care less and find out what it is that you nerd out about, like my whole thing with like shapes and overlaps and colors and values and like all of these weird things that I study with my painting. I mean, that's the thing that I love. And when I am frustrated by the internet, I just need to remember, like, the thing that I like looking at shapes. I like thinking about colors. I like putting things together, and I return my brain to that world, and then I can keep making.
Well put. I mean, for any listeners, any artists listening, remember, all right, you're not too committed to one particular style. You got to test the water, see if this is where you fit, and if you feel like this is the path that you're ready to, walk down, then keep going. But don't be so committed to what you like at the moment. I had an old friend who once said, don't be so bound to visual masturbation. All right. Once it's all over, you're going to be like, oh, well, this is just meh. Let me see what I do when I actually love something. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you can be here for this episode of The Creator's Key.
Thank you.
We're going to be promoting a whole bunch of different artists throughout this month who are very strong, powerful women, and we are glad to have you for this segment. And this is just, a shout out, support for your fellow community members. If there's any other female artists that you admire, who should people be following on social media right now that are female?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Obviously you.
Well, me, and that's the only answer. No, I think that statistically, like half of the people on Instagram are probably women. So, I think that it is fabulous to highlight women specifically in the work that they do. But I think that, that we are all on the same playing field here. And I think that when you are following people's art, you should be primarily focused on the art that they make, rather than feeling like you are following them based on whatever their identity might be. So that is my spiel. But I mean, there are so many. I mean, there's way too many to list. If you really want to see my absolute picks, on my own, just to keep bringing up Instagram, on my own Instagram, I follow probably 900 people. And almost all of them are artists. A good amount of them are women making cool stuff. And, and if you really want to dig through, there is a treasure trove of very talented people of many different identities that that are producing work that's worth looking at. So I don't know that I can give you a specific name, but I can tell you that there are so many. We are the women artists are not the minority of artists. So I think it's a big thing that exists widely. This is not like
I get it.
We're not a subculture. We're just the culture.
You are the culture.
Right?
I get it. Yeah. So I am MC Mufasa. We just had Hannah the Obanoth Webb, and we are going to be wrapping up. You stay classy.
Love that. Thanks for having me.